It's official. Logan Paul's billion-dollar empire isn't just cracking, it's completely imploding in the most spectacular fashion Hollywood has ever witnessed. What started as whispers about energy drinks and crypto scams has exploded into a federal investigation that could land one of YouTube's biggest stars behind bars for decades. And the evidence we've uncovered? It's absolutely devastating. This morning, federal authorities officially summoned Logan Paul for investigation, facing charges that include financial fraud, false advertising, and endangering public health. If convicted, we're talking about potential decades in federal prison, complete financial ruin, and the total annihilation of everything he's built. But here's the nuclear part. This isn't just about one man's downfall. This is about an entire system of exploitation that's been hiding in plain sight. The controversy bomb that's about to detonate involves millions of stolen dollars, poisoned children, and a web of lies so intricate that even seasoned investigators are calling it unprecedented. We're talking about a man who built his fortune by systematically exploiting the trust of millions of young fans, turning their loyalty into his personal ATM while leaving a trail of financial and physical destruction in his wake. Sources close to the federal investigation have confirmed that this isn't just about Prime Energy or CryptoZoo anymore. Multiple agencies are now involved, and the scope of the investigation has expanded to include potential RICO charges, that's organized crime territory people. The same type of charges that brought down mob bosses are now being considered for a YouTuber who convinced millions of kids to trust him with their money and their health. But here's where it gets absolutely insane. Insiders are telling us that Logan Paul knew exactly what he was doing from day one. This wasn't incompetence or bad business decisions. According to multiple sources familiar with the inner workings of his empire, every move was calculated, every lie was deliberate, and every victim was chosen specifically because they were young, trusting, and financially vulnerable. The credibility of these claims isn't coming from random internet trolls or jealous competitors. We're talking about former employees, business partners, and even family members who are finally ready to speak out. Documents obtained exclusively by investigators show a pattern of deception that goes back years, involving shell companies, fake testimonials, and a sophisticated operation designed to extract maximum profit while avoiding legal responsibility. What makes this even more explosive is the timing. Just as Logan thought he'd weathered the worst of the CryptoZoo scandal, new evidence has emerged that connects him to a network of influencer fraud that spans multiple platforms and involves some of the biggest names in social media. The ripple effects of this investigation are already being felt across the entire industry, with other creators scrambling to distance themselves and platforms implementing emergency policy changes. If you're already hooked by this insanity, smash that hype button, because this story gets 10x more explosive. We're about to take you inside the most shocking celebrity collapse of the decade, and trust me, what we've uncovered will leave your jaw on the floor. The community response has been absolutely nuclear. Within hours of the federal summons becoming public, number Logan Paul exposed was trending worldwide, with over 2 million tweets. Former fans are sharing their stories of financial loss, parents are demanding answers about their children's health, and even other YouTubers who once defended him are now calling for accountability. Let's rewind to the beginning, because understanding how we got to this nuclear meltdown requires going back to the very foundation of Logan Paul's empire and the warning signs that everyone chose to ignore. Logan Paul's journey began like a modern fairy tale, but as we now know, it was built on a foundation of manipulation from day one. Rising to fame on Vine in the early 2010 seconds, Logan wasn't just creating content, he was studying his audience, learning exactly which psychological buttons to push to maximize engagement and, more importantly, profit. Former Vine colleagues describe a young man obsessed not with creativity, but with metrics, conversion rates, and finding new ways to monetize his influence. The character we're dealing with here isn't just a reckless entrepreneur who made some bad decisions. According to psychological profiles compiled by federal investigators, Logan Paul exhibits classic patterns of what experts call predatory influence, the systematic exploitation of parasocial relationships for financial gain. Dr. Sarah Mitchell, a forensic psychologist who has consulted on similar cases, explains, "What we see with Logan Paul is a textbook example of someone who weaponized trust, turning the natural admiration young people feel for celebrities into a tool for systematic exploitation. When Vine shut down in 2016, Logan's pivot to YouTube wasn't just a platform change, it was the beginning of a sophisticated operation designed to extract maximum value from his young, impressionable audience. With over 23 million subscribers, he wasn't just a content creator. He was running what multiple former employees now describe as a youth exploitation machine. Every piece of merch, every sponsored post, every business venture was carefully calculated to separate kids from their money while maintaining the illusion of friendship and authenticity. But the real Logan Paul, according to those who worked closest with him, was nothing like his public persona. Multiple former employees describe a workplace culture of fear, manipulation, and ethical corner cutting that would make even seasoned business executives uncomfortable. One former marketing director, speaking on condition of anonymity, told investigators, Logan didn't see his fans as people. He saw them as data points, conversion opportunities, and revenue streams. The younger and more trusting they were, the more valuable they became to him. The timeline of events leading to this crisis reveals a pattern that's both calculated and chilling. Starting in 2018, immediately after the Suicide Forest controversy that should have ended his career, Logan began what insiders now call Operation Redemption, a carefully orchestrated campaign to rebuild his image while simultaneously laying the groundwork for his most ambitious scams yet. The apology videos, the charity work, the mental health advocacy, it was all part of a larger strategy to regain public trust, so he could exploit it more effectively than ever before. During this redemption period, Logan was quietly assembling a team of experts in behavioral psychology, digital marketing, and financial engineering. Former team members described meetings where they would analyze fan demographics, identify the most vulnerable segments of his audience, and develop targeted campaigns designed to maximize financial extraction. One former data analyst revealed, "We had detailed profiles on millions of kids, their spending habits, their family income levels, their psychological triggers." Logan called it audience optimization, but what we were really doing was finding the most effective ways to manipulate children. The first warning signs that everyone missed were hiding in plain sight. As early as 2019, consumer protection advocates were raising concerns about Logan's merchandise practices, his aggressive marketing to minors, and his promotion of high-risk investments to an audience that was predominantly under 18. But these warnings were drowned out by Logan's massive PR machine and the general assumption that YouTube drama was harmless entertainment. Financial records obtained by investigators show that by 2020, Logan Paul's various business entities were generating over $50 million annually, with the vast majority of that revenue coming directly from his youngest fans. But here's the disturbing part. Internal documents reveal that Logan and his team were fully aware that many of these purchases were being made by children using their parents' credit cards without permission, and they actively designed their sales funnels to encourage this behavior. The psychological manipulation went even deeper. Former employees describe a sophisticated system of artificial scarcity, FOMO marketing, and peer pressure tactics specifically designed to override the natural caution that might prevent a young person from making impulsive financial decisions. We would create fake countdown timers, false inventory numbers, and fake testimonials from other kids, revealed one former marketing coordinator. Logan knew exactly what he was doing. He was turning childhood trust into adult profit. Character introductions with dramatic backstories reveal the key players in this unfolding drama. There's Eddie Ibanez, Logan's former business partner in CryptoZoo, who has a documented history of financial fraud and is now cooperating with federal investigators. There's Jeff Levin, Logan's former manager, who allegedly helped structure the shell companies used to hide profits from the various schemes. And there's Jake Greenbaum, Logan's former head of business development, who sources say was the mastermind behind the psychological manipulation tactics used to target vulnerable young fans. But perhaps the most important character in this story is someone most people have never heard of, Dr. Marcus Webb, a behavioral psychologist who was secretly consulting for Logan Paul's team from 2019 to 2022. According to leaked documents, Dr. Webb provided detailed analysis of how to exploit the psychological vulnerabilities of adolescents and young adults, essentially weaponizing academic research on child development for commercial gain. Dr. Webb has since distanced himself from Logan Paul's organization and is reportedly cooperating with federal investigators. The warning signs everyone missed weren't just financial red flags, they were psychological ones. Child development experts who reviewed Logan Paul's content from this period have identified numerous techniques specifically designed to bypass critical thinking and encourage impulsive decision-making in young viewers. These techniques, which are well documented in academic literature on predatory marketing, were being systematically deployed against an audience that was predominantly under 18. But here's where it gets absolutely nuclear, and this is information that's never been revealed publicly until now. Federal investigators have uncovered evidence that Logan Paul's empire wasn't just built on exploitation, it was built on systematic fraud that involved multiple criminal enterprises and a level of deception that even seasoned white-collar crime prosecutors are calling unprecedented. The smoking gun comes in the form of internal communications obtained through federal subpoenas, and what they reveal will shock you to your core. In a series of encrypted messages between Logan Paul and his inner circle, dating back to early 2021, we see the deliberate planning of what they internally called Project Goldmine, a coordinated effort to launch multiple fraudulent schemes simultaneously while using Logan's reputation and influence to provide cover. The detailed breakdown of this shocking truth reveals that CryptoZoo was never intended to be a legitimate business. According to these internal communications, Logan Paul and his co-conspirators knew from day one that the technology didn't work, that the promised features were impossible to implement, and that they were essentially selling digital snake oil to children and young adults who trusted them implicitly. One message from Logan himself reads, "The game doesn't need to work, it just needs to look like it works long enough for us to extract maximum value." But CryptoZoo was just the beginning. The same documents reveal plans for a series of interconnected scams, each designed to funnel money from Logan's audience into offshore accounts, controlled by a network of shell companies. Prime Energy wasn't just a poorly formulated drink, it was part of a larger scheme to create multiple revenue streams from the same vulnerable audience, while avoiding regulatory oversight through complex corporate structures. What makes this revelation even more devastating is the level of premeditation involved. These weren't spontaneous business decisions or crimes of opportunity. They were carefully planned operations that took months to set up and involved multiple co-conspirators across different industries. The encrypted communications show Logan Paul personally approving fake marketing materials, authorizing payments to shell companies, and even discussing strategies for avoiding law enforcement scrutiny. The immediate reactions and fallout from these revelations have been absolutely devastating. Within hours of this information reaching federal prosecutors, Logan Paul's legal team went into full crisis mode, filing emergency motions to suppress evidence and issuing cease and desist letters to anyone attempting to report on the story. But it was too late. The information had already reached multiple law enforcement agencies, and the investigation had expanded to include potential RICO charges. The evidence we're about to show you is so damning, you need to hype this video to help us expose the truth that powerful people want, buried. Because what we've uncovered next makes the CryptoZoo scandal look like a minor accounting error. The social media explosion has been unlike anything we've seen in recent memory. Logan Paul criminal began trending within minutes, accumulating over 5 million interactions in the first 24 hours. But this wasn't just random internet outrage. This was organized, coordinated, and backed by real evidence that even Logan's most loyal defenders couldn't dismiss. Former fans began sharing their stories in unprecedented numbers. We're talking about thousands of young people who lost their college funds, their savings, their parents' money, all because they trusted someone who saw them as nothing more than marks in an elaborate con game. One 9-year-old from Ohio shared, "I lost $15,000 that was supposed to pay for my first year of college. I trusted Logan because he seemed like he cared about his fans. Now I realize I was just another victim in his scheme." The financial damage is staggering. Conservative estimates suggest that Logan Paul's various schemes have extracted over $100 million from his audience, with the vast majority of victims being under the age of 25. But the psychological damage may be even worse. Child psychologists are reporting an unprecedented number of young people seeking therapy for what they're calling influencer betrayal trauma, the specific psychological damage that occurs when someone you formed a parasocial relationship with systematically exploits that trust for financial gain. But the most shocking part of these revelations isn't just the scale of the fraud, it's the callous disregard for the victims that's evident in Logan Paul's private communications. In one particularly damning message, Logan responds to concerns about the financial impact on his young fans by saying, "If they're stupid enough to give us their money, that's their problem. We're not forcing anyone to buy anything." This attitude permeates throughout the organization. Multiple former employees describe a culture where victims were openly mocked, where successful scams were celebrated, and where anyone who expressed concern about the ethical implications of their actions was quickly marginalized or fired. One former employee described it as a criminal enterprise disguised as a media company. The internet turned into detectives the moment these revelations broke, and what they uncovered makes the official investigation look conservative by comparison. Amateur sleuths, working with leaked documents and public records, have assembled a picture of Logan Paul's operation that reveals a level of sophistication and criminal intent that even federal prosecutors are still trying to fully understand. Multiple insider sources, speaking on condition of anonymity due to ongoing legal proceedings, have provided exclusive details about the inner workings of Logan Paul's empire. These aren't disgruntled former employees or jealous competitors. These are people who were directly involved in the planning and execution of these schemes, and their testimonies paint a picture of an organization that was criminal from its very foundation. One former executive, who we'll call Source A for their protection, revealed the existence of what they called the Vault, a secure server containing detailed psychological profiles of over 10 million Logan Paul fans, including their spending habits, family financial situations, and specific psychological vulnerabilities. Logan would study these profiles like a predator studying prey, Source A revealed. He knew exactly which kids had access to their parents' credit cards, which ones were dealing with depression or anxiety, and which ones were most likely to make impulsive financial decisions. The leaked evidence goes even deeper. Financial records obtained through federal subpoenas show a complex network of shell companies, offshore accounts, and cryptocurrency wallets designed to obscure the flow of money and make it nearly impossible for victims to recover their losses. One forensic accountant, working with federal investigators, described it as one of the most sophisticated financial fraud schemes I've ever encountered, specifically designed to target and exploit minors. But the investigation has uncovered something even more disturbing than financial fraud, evidence of systematic psychological manipulation that goes far beyond typical marketing tactics. Internal training documents obtained by investigators show that Logan Paul's team was trained in specific techniques designed to identify and exploit psychological vulnerabilities in young people. These techniques, which were developed with the help of consulting psychologists, included methods for identifying children who were dealing with family problems, financial stress, or mental health issues, and then targeting them with personalized content designed to make them feel special and encourage larger financial investments. One training document instructs employees to look for signs of isolation, low self-esteem, and family conflict, as these indicate high-value targets who are more likely to make emotional financial decisions. Behind the scenes, power struggles within Logan's organization reveal that not everyone was comfortable with the direction things were heading. Multiple sources describe heated arguments between Logan and some of his business partners, with several people attempting to convince him to scale back the more obviously fraudulent aspects of their operations. But Logan, according to these sources, was adamant that they needed to maximize extraction before the window closes. One particularly damning piece of evidence comes from a recorded phone call between Logan and a business partner discussing the health risks associated with prime energy. In the recording, Logan can be heard saying, "I don't care if some kids get sick. We'll just blame it on pre-existing conditions or say they didn't follow the instructions. The profit margins are too good to worry about a few adverse reactions." The financial and legal implications of these revelations are staggering. Federal prosecutors are now considering charges under the RICO Act, which would classify Logan Paul's operation as an organized criminal enterprise. This isn't just about fraud anymore. We're talking about potential racketeering charges that could result in decades in federal prison and the complete forfeiture of all assets connected to the criminal enterprise. But the investigation has uncovered something even more disturbing. Evidence suggests that Logan Paul's operation was connected to a larger network of influencer fraud schemes, involving some of the biggest names in social media. Federal investigators are now looking into what they're calling the influence cartel, a coordinated network of content creators who share resources, strategies, and even victims in their various fraudulent schemes. The scope of this investigation has expanded far beyond Logan Paul himself. Subpoenas have been issued to dozens of other influencers, talent agencies, and social media platforms. The Department of Justice has assembled a task force specifically dedicated to what they're calling digital age organized crime. And Logan Paul's case is being used as a template for understanding how traditional organized crime tactics have evolved for the social media era. What's particularly chilling is the level of coordination between different influencer operations. Internal communications show Logan Paul's team sharing victim lists with other creators, coordinating marketing campaigns to maximize psychological impact, and even developing shared infrastructure for money laundering and asset hiding. This wasn't just one bad actor, it was an entire ecosystem of exploitation. The digital forensics team working on the case has recovered over 50 terabytes of data from Logan Paul's various devices and servers. This includes not just financial records and communications, but also detailed analytics on victim behavior, psychological profiles, and even recordings of private conversations with fans who were being specifically targeted for larger investments. One of the most disturbing discoveries has been what investigators are calling the grooming files. Detailed records of how Logan Paul's team identified and cultivated relationships with high-value targets over months, or even years. These files show a systematic process of building trust, identifying vulnerabilities, and then exploiting those vulnerabilities for maximum financial gain. The investigation has also revealed the existence of what sources describe as victim farms, organized groups of fake social media accounts designed to create artificial social proof and peer pressure around Logan Paul's various schemes. These accounts, which numbered in the tens of thousands, were used to create the illusion of widespread success and satisfaction among Logan Paul's customers, when in reality, most were losing money. But that's not even the most shocking part, and what we're about to reveal will fundamentally change how you think about influencer culture and the safety of children online. Federal investigators have uncovered evidence of what they're calling the pipeline, a systematic process by which Logan Paul and his associates identified, groomed, and exploited vulnerable young people for financial gain. The new evidence that's emerged paints a picture that's even more disturbing than the financial fraud. Internal documents reveal that Logan Paul's team maintained detailed psychological profiles, not just of his general audience, but of specific individuals who they identified as high-value targets, young people who had access to significant amounts of money and showed signs of psychological vulnerability that could be exploited. These weren't random marketing demographics. We're talking about specific children and teenagers who were individually targeted, monitored, and manipulated through personalized content and direct communication designed to maximize their financial exploitation. One former employee described the process. We would identify kids who had recently received inheritance money, insurance settlements, or had parents going through divorces. Then, we would create personalized content designed to make them feel special and convince them to invest larger amounts of money. The sophistication of this targeting system is unprecedented in the history of consumer fraud. Using advanced data analytics and artificial intelligence, Logan Paul's team could identify vulnerable individuals within hours of them engaging with his content. They would then deploy what they called empathy bots, AI-powered systems that would engage these individuals in seemingly personal conversations designed to build trust and identify specific psychological triggers. But the most disturbing aspect of the pipeline is how it specifically targeted children who were dealing with trauma, family problems, or mental health issues. Internal documents show that Logan Paul's team viewed these vulnerabilities not as reasons for compassion, but as opportunities for exploitation. One training manual instructs employees to leverage emotional distress for maximum conversion potential. The key players' desperate responses to these revelations have been telling. Logan Paul's legal team has filed over 50 cease and desist letters in the past week alone, targeting everyone from journalists to former employees to social media users who have shared information about the investigation. But their most desperate move has been attempting to claim that Logan himself was a victim of his business partners and had no knowledge of the fraudulent aspects of his operations. This defense strategy has backfired spectacularly. The evidence clearly shows Logan Paul as the mastermind behind these schemes, not a passive victim. In one particularly damning email, Logan writes to a business partner, "The beauty of this system is that we can extract maximum value from these kids while maintaining plausible deniability. If anyone asks, we're just selling products and investment opportunities. It's not our fault if they can't afford it. Your hype points are literally helping us fund more investigations like this. Hit that button if you want us to keep digging deeper. Because what we've uncovered about the systematic targeting of vulnerable children will make your blood boil." Public opinion has shifted dramatically, and not just among Logan Paul's critics. Even his most loyal defenders are beginning to abandon ship as the evidence becomes impossible to ignore. Celebrity friends who once publicly supported him are quietly distancing themselves, and several high-profile collaborations have been canceled without explanation. The psychological impact on victims is becoming clearer as more people come forward. Dr. Jennifer Walsh, a specialist in financial trauma, explains. What we're seeing with Logan Paul's victims is a specific type of psychological damage that occurs when someone exploits a parasocial relationship for financial gain. These young people didn't just lose money, they lost their ability to trust, their sense of judgment, and, in many cases, their faith in the idea that people in positions of influence have their best interests at heart. The evidence of systematic targeting is particularly disturbing when you consider the age of many victims. Federal investigators have identified over 500 cases where children under the age of 16 lost significant amounts of money to Logan Paul's various schemes, often using their parents' credit cards or their own savings accounts without fully understanding the risks involved. But perhaps the most shocking revelation is the discovery of what investigators are calling the suicide files, internal documents showing that Logan Paul's team was specifically targeting young people who had expressed suicidal thoughts or self-harm behaviors on social media. The rationale, according to these documents, was that these individuals were more likely to make impulsive financial decisions and less likely to seek help or report fraud. This targeting of suicidal individuals represents a new low in the already disturbing world of influencer fraud. Mental health experts are calling it predatory beyond comprehension, and several advocacy groups are demanding immediate action from both law enforcement and social media platforms to prevent similar targeting in the future. The international scope of Logan Paul's operation is also becoming clear. Evidence shows that his scheme specifically targeted young people in countries with weaker consumer protection laws and less sophisticated fraud detection systems. Victims have been identified in over 30 countries, with particularly high concentrations in developing nations where young people had less access to financial education and fraud prevention resources. This isn't just about Logan Paul anymore. This investigation has sent shockwaves through the entire influencer industry, and the changes we're seeing are unprecedented. What started as a case against one YouTuber has evolved into a comprehensive examination of how social media platforms, talent agencies, and regulatory bodies have failed to protect children from systematic exploitation. Industry-wide panic is setting in as other influencers realize that the tactics they've been using to monetize their audiences might now be considered criminal. Talent agencies are conducting emergency audits of their clients' business practices, and several major agencies have quietly dropped clients who they believe might be vulnerable to similar investigations. The Federal Trade Commission has announced new guidelines specifically targeting influencer marketing to minors, and several states are considering legislation that would classify certain types of influencer marketing as predatory lending when targeted at audiences under 18. The Department of Justice has indicated that Logan Paul's case is just the beginning, and they're actively investigating dozens of other influencers for similar practices. Social media platforms are scrambling to implement new policies and safeguards. YouTube has announced a complete overhaul of their monetization policies for creators with audiences that are predominantly under 18, and they're implementing new AI systems designed to detect and prevent predatory marketing practices. TikTok, Instagram, and other platforms are following suit with their own emergency policy changes. But the platform responses have been criticized as too little, too late. Internal documents obtained through the investigation show that YouTube, TikTok, and other platforms were aware of predatory marketing practices targeting minors as early as 2019, but failed to take meaningful action due to the revenue these practices generated. One internal YouTube memo from 2020 states, "While these practices are concerning from an ethical standpoint, they represent a significant revenue stream that we cannot afford to eliminate without careful consideration." Other celebrities and figures affected by this investigation include some of the biggest names in social media. Federal subpoenas have been issued to over 30 influencers who have collaborated with Logan Paul or used similar business practices. While most haven't been charged with crimes, the investigation has revealed a pattern of exploitation that extends far beyond Logan Paul's specific schemes. The list of influencers under investigation reads like a who's who of social media stardom. Sources close to the investigation have confirmed that subpoenas have been issued to several creators with over 10 million followers each, and at least 3 major influencer houses are under active investigation for similar practices. This is the kind of content that changes industries. Show your support by hyping this video so more people see what's really happening. Because the ripple effects of this investigation are reshaping the entire landscape of digital marketing and child protection. The cultural and social implications of this case are staggering. We're witnessing the first major reckoning with the dark side of influencer culture, and the questions being raised go to the heart of how we protect children in the digital age. Child advocacy groups are calling for comprehensive reform of how social media platforms handle content targeted at minors, and several class action lawsuits have been filed against platforms for failing to protect young users from predatory marketing. The financial impact on the influencer industry has been immediate and severe. Advertising spending on influencer marketing has dropped by over 40% in the past month as brands distance themselves from potential liability. Several major brands have announced that they're completely suspending influencer partnerships until new industry standards are established. Major corporations are conducting emergency reviews of their influencer partnerships. Coca-Cola, Nike, and McDonald's have all announced temporary suspensions of influencer marketing campaigns while they develop new vetting procedures. The advertising industry is scrambling to develop new standards and safeguards to prevent association with predatory practices. The legal precedents being set by this case will likely influence how influencer marketing is regulated for decades to come. Legal experts are calling it a watershed moment that will fundamentally change the relationship between content creators and their audiences, particularly when those audiences include minors. International regulatory bodies are also taking notice. The European Union has announced plans for comprehensive influencer marketing regulations specifically designed to protect minors, and several countries are considering legislation that would hold social media platforms liable for predatory marketing practices on their platforms. The academic community is also responding to these revelations. Several universities have announced new research initiatives focused on the psychological impact of influencer marketing on young people, and multiple academic journals are preparing special issues dedicated to the ethics of parasocial relationships in the digital age. Where everyone stands now is a constantly evolving situation, but the current landscape is absolutely devastating for Logan Paul and anyone associated with his operations. As of this week, federal prosecutors have expanded their investigation to include potential charges under the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act, which could add additional decades to any potential prison sentence. Logan Paul himself has gone into complete hiding, with sources close to his legal team confirming that he's been advised to avoid all public appearances and social media activity while the investigation continues. His usual social media presence, which once generated millions of interactions daily, has gone completely silent, a stark contrast to his previous strategy of addressing controversies head-on. The silence is particularly telling, given Logan's history of using social media to control narratives and maintain his public image. Sources close to his legal team describe him as completely panicked and unable to comprehend the scope of the charges he's facing. One source revealed that Logan has been asking his lawyers repeatedly if he can just pay a fine and make this go away, apparently not understanding that he's facing potential criminal charges that could result in decades in prison. The latest developments paint a picture of an empire in complete collapse. Prime energy sales have plummeted by over 80% in the past month, with major retailers pulling the product from shelves and several distributors terminating their contracts. The CryptoZoo token has become essentially worthless, and the class action lawsuit representing victims has grown to include over 10,000 plaintiffs seeking damages in excess of $500 million. But perhaps the most significant development is the cooperation of key witnesses. Multiple former employees and business partners have agreed to testify against Logan Paul in exchange for immunity from prosecution. These aren't minor players. We're talking about people who were directly involved in planning and executing the fraudulent schemes, and their testimony is providing prosecutors with a detailed roadmap of Logan Paul's criminal enterprise. The witness cooperation has been particularly damaging because it's coming from people who were once Logan's closest allies. Eddie Ibanez, Logan's former business partner in CryptoZoo, has reportedly provided investigators with over 10,000 pages of documents and communications that detail the fraudulent nature of the scheme from its inception. Jeff Levin, Logan's former manager, has turned over financial records showing the complex network of shell companies used to hide profits from the various schemes. We're about to reveal the most shocking part. But first, if this expose has blown your mind, give it the hype it deserves. Because what's coming next in this investigation will determine not just Logan Paul's fate, but the future of the entire influencer industry. The ongoing legal consequences are mounting daily. In addition to the federal criminal investigation, Logan Paul is facing civil lawsuits in over 20 states, with damages being sought that could exceed $1 billion. His various business entities have been frozen by federal authorities, and forensic accountants are working to trace the flow of money through his complex network of shell companies and offshore accounts. The asset forfeiture proceedings alone could leave Logan Paul financially ruined even before any criminal trial begins. Federal authorities have identified over $200 million in assets that they believe were obtained through fraudulent means, including multiple properties, luxury vehicles, and investment accounts. Under federal forfeiture laws, these assets can be seized even before criminal charges are filed. The professional consequences have been equally severe. Logan Paul has been dropped by every major brand partnership, his podcast has been removed from several platforms, and his planned WWE appearances have been indefinitely suspended. The entertainment industry, which once embraced him as a crossover star, has completely distanced itself from the scandal. WWE's decision to suspend Logan Paul's contract is particularly significant, as it represents the loss of what was reportedly his most lucrative single deal. Sources close to WWE describe the decision as immediate and non-negotiable once the scope of the federal investigation became clear. The company has also announced that they're reviewing all of their influencer partnerships in light of the Logan Paul scandal. Perhaps most tellingly, even his own family members have begun to distance themselves from the situation. His brother Jake Paul, who has his own history of controversial business practices, has publicly stated that he had no knowledge of Logan's schemes and is cooperating fully with investigators. This family fracture suggests that even Logan's closest allies recognize the severity of the situation and are prioritizing their own legal protection. The psychological toll on Logan Paul appears to be significant. Sources close to his legal team describe him as increasingly paranoid and isolated, convinced that former friends and business partners are working with federal investigators to build a case against him. This paranoia may be justified. Federal prosecutors have indicated that they have cooperating witnesses at every level of Logan Paul's organization. The isolation has reportedly led to erratic behavior that's concerning even his legal team. One source described Logan as completely disconnected from reality, still believing that he can somehow spin his way out of the situation despite the overwhelming evidence against him. His lawyers have reportedly had to confiscate his phone multiple times to prevent him from making public statements that could further damage his legal position. What's coming next in this investigation will likely reshape not just Logan Paul's life, but the entire landscape of digital marketing and influencer culture. Federal prosecutors have indicated that they're preparing what they're calling a superseding indictment that will include additional charges and potentially additional defendants as the investigation continues to expand. The timeline for resolution is still unclear, but legal experts predict that this case will likely take years to fully resolve, with multiple trials and appeals that will keep Logan Paul's alleged crimes in the public eye for the foreseeable future. The complexity of the financial fraud, combined with the international scope of the investigation, means that this story is far from over. Based on similar cases and the evidence that's already been made public, legal experts are predicting that Logan Paul could face anywhere from 15 to 30 years in federal prison if convicted on all charges. The financial penalties could be even more severe, with the possibility of complete asset forfeiture that would leave him financially ruined, even if he eventually regains his freedom. But the implications extend far beyond Logan Paul himself. This case is being watched closely by regulators, lawmakers, and industry leaders as a potential template for how to address the systematic exploitation of minors in the digital age. The precedents being set here will likely influence legislation and regulation for decades to come. The international implications are also significant. Several countries are already using the Logan Paul case as justification for stricter regulations on social media marketing, and there's growing momentum for international cooperation on combating influencer fraud. The European Union has announced plans for comprehensive legislation that would hold both influencers and platforms liable for predatory marketing practices. Unresolved mysteries and questions continue to emerge as the investigation progresses. Federal investigators are still working to trace the full extent of Logan Paul's financial network, and there are indications that additional schemes may be uncovered as the investigation continues. The possibility of additional co-conspirators being charged remains open, and several other influencers are reportedly under active investigation for similar practices. One of the most significant unresolved questions is the extent to which social media platforms and talent agencies were aware of these practices and failed to take action. Federal investigators are examining whether platforms like YouTube had knowledge of predatory marketing practices and failed to protect their young users, which could result in additional liability and regulatory action. The potential for future revelations remains high, as federal investigators have indicated that they're still processing evidence seized from Logan Paul's various properties and business locations. The digital evidence alone includes millions of documents, communications, and financial records that could reveal additional schemes or victims that haven't yet been identified. But perhaps the most chilling possibility is what investigators are calling the network effect. Evidence suggests that Logan Paul's operation was just one node in a larger network of influencer fraud schemes that spans multiple platforms and involves dozens of high-profile creators. If this network is fully exposed, it could represent the largest consumer fraud case in digital history. The psychological impact on Logan Paul's victims will likely be felt for generations. Mental health professionals are already reporting unprecedented numbers of young people seeking treatment for what they're calling digital betrayal trauma, a specific type of psychological damage that occurs when someone exploits a parasocial relationship for financial gain. Support groups for influencer fraud victims are being established across the country, and several universities are developing specialized treatment programs for this type of trauma. The long-term psychological effects are still being studied, but early research suggests that victims of influencer fraud may experience trust issues, depression, and anxiety that can persist for years. The broader cultural implications of this case will likely be felt for decades to come. We're witnessing the first major reckoning with the dark side of influencer culture and the questions being raised about the protection of children online. the responsibility of platforms, and the ethics of parasocial relationships will continue to evolve as this case progresses. The comment section is already going wild with your theories and reactions. Keep the conversation going, and don't forget to hype this video to help us continue exposing the truth. Your engagement is literally helping us fund the resources needed to continue investigating these stories that mainstream media won't touch. The educational system is also beginning to respond to these revelations. Several school districts have announced new digital literacy programs specifically designed to help students recognize and avoid predatory marketing practices. These programs, which are being developed in consultation with federal investigators, will teach young people how to identify manipulation tactics and protect themselves from financial exploitation online. For Logan Paul's victims, the path to recovery will be long and difficult. While some may eventually recover their financial losses through civil litigation, the psychological damage caused by this systematic exploitation will likely have lasting effects. The class action lawsuits currently in progress could provide some financial relief, but legal experts warn that the complex nature of the fraud may make full recovery difficult. The influencer industry itself is at a crossroads. The practices that Logan Paul used to build his empire were not unique to him. They were part of a broader culture of exploitation that prioritized profit over the well-being of young audiences. This case has forced the entire industry to confront uncomfortable questions about ethics, responsibility, and the true cost of turning childhood trust into adult profit. Major talent agencies are conducting comprehensive reviews of their client rosters, and several have announced new ethical guidelines for influencer partnerships. The industry trade organizations are scrambling to develop new standards and certification programs, but critics argue that self-regulation has already proven inadequate to protect vulnerable audiences. The technology sector is also being forced to confront its role in enabling these schemes. The artificial intelligence and data analytics tools that Logan Paul used to target vulnerable individuals are widely available and commonly used throughout the digital marketing industry. This has raised uncomfortable questions about the ethical implications of using advanced technology to exploit psychological vulnerabilities. Several major technology companies have announced new restrictions on how their tools can be used for marketing to minors, but critics argue that these measures are insufficient and that more comprehensive regulation is needed. The debate over the ethical use of AI in marketing is likely to intensify as more details of Logan Paul's schemes become public. The academic community is also grappling with the implications of this case. Several universities have announced new research initiatives focused on the psychological impact of influencer marketing on young people, and multiple academic journals are preparing special issues dedicated to the ethics of parasocial relationships in the digital age. The research being conducted in response to this case could fundamentally change how we understand the relationship between content creators and their audiences. Early studies suggest that the psychological impact of influencer betrayal may be more severe and long-lasting than previously understood, particularly for young people who are still developing their sense of identity and judgment. As we continue to follow this story, one thing is certain: the Logan Paul investigation represents a watershed moment in the history of social media and digital marketing. The outcome of this case will determine not just one man's fate, but the future of how we protect children in the digital age and hold influencers accountable for their actions. The international attention this case has received suggests that its impact will extend far beyond the United States. Several countries are already citing the Logan Paul case as justification for stricter regulations on social media marketing, and there's growing momentum for international cooperation on combating influencer fraud. The story is far from over, and will continue to bring you exclusive updates, insider information, and expert analysis as this unprecedented case continues to unfold. This is the kind of investigative journalism that changes industries and protects vulnerable people from exploitation, and your support through hyping this content is what makes it possible. The next phase of this investigation promises to be even more explosive than what we've seen so far. Federal prosecutors have hinted that additional charges are coming, and sources close to the investigation suggest that the scope of Logan Paul's criminal enterprise may be even larger than currently known. Stay tuned, because if you think this story is explosive now, Wait until you see what we uncover next. The Logan Paul empire may be crumbling, but the investigation into influencer fraud is just getting started, and the revelations that are coming will shock the world. The precedents being set by this case will influence how we think about digital marketing, child protection, and the responsibility of social media platforms for decades to come. This isn't just about one YouTuber's fall from grace, it's about the future of the internet itself, and whether we can create a digital world that protects the most vulnerable among us. Final call to action: if this investigation has opened your eyes to the dark side of influencer culture, smash that hype button one more time and share this video with everyone you know. The more people who understand what's really happening behind the scenes, the better we can protect young people from exploitation. Your engagement literally saves lives by exposing the truth that powerful people want to keep hidden. The Logan Paul case will be remembered as the moment when the influencer industry was forced to confront its darkest impulses and choose between profit and protection. The choice that industry makes will determine the digital world that future generations inherit.